If I was in the middle of the woods and a chimpanzee screamed "go" at me, I don't think I'd be coming back. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Continuing my Planet of the Apes review series, today I'm going to be talking about the 8th film in the franchise, 2014 sci-fi action sequel, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all that extra content. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes stars Andy Serkis, Toby Kebbell, and Jason Clarke, and was directed by Matt Reeves. Set 10 years and a devastating pandemic after Rise of the Planet of the Apes, it tells the story of chimpanzee leader Caesar as he tries to prevent a war between apes and humans. Franchise reboots rarely equal or surpass original series, and sequels don't often equal or surpass their first films either. So a sequel to a reboot? Not exactly the type of thing that's typically wanted or successful, but in the case of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, it ended up being both. Its predecessor, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, did an unexpectedly good job of rebooting the franchise, and this sequel was not only able to continue that, but to expand upon it. It picks up with the story and characters 10 years later, which might seem like a big jump for most sequels, but works here, allowing for some creative freedom within the franchise constraints of where the plot's eventually headed long term. It's a sequel that takes on a darker tone, which is certainly nothing new for this notoriously grim franchise. Almost all of these movies have had very serious plots, but with the makeup and characters and certain plot points, it could sometimes be difficult to take them seriously. When watching the original series or the remake, there are always these goofy moments where it just strikes you that you're watching a talking monkey or a gorilla riding around on horseback. In this reboot series, and this film in particular, those things still happen, but there's no silliness to them. There's still plenty of blockbuster entertainment to be had here, but it's a film that takes its concept seriously, and in doing so, convinces the audience to as well. As the second chapter of a trilogy, this film found itself in an interesting position. The first movie did a lot of heavy lifting, laying the foundation for the story and many of the key characters, but it also set a high bar. When it comes to the story in particular, Dawn is somehow both broader and more contained than its predecessor. The threat and events of the story feel bigger, there are far more action sequences, and the plot repercussions feel grander. But there's also much more nuanced character work here. It sounds crazy to say that, because that aspect was really strong in Rise as well, but there's something about the emotion and relationship aspects, especially among the apes, that gives the illusion of a more intimate, smaller scale story. I realize that this all sounds very contradictory, but it works. Once again, the main focus of the story lies with the apes, and there are big chunks of this film that don't have any human characters. But I do think that the human elements of the story, it's surprisingly decent. Don't get me wrong, the apes are definitely the stars here, and the purely human scenes are a little dull. But the way the film blends the ape and human stories together is where things get interesting. In much the same way that Rise drew inspiration from Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, Dawn draws from Battle for the Planet of the Apes, but presents the story with a lot more nuance and depth. Speaking of nuance and depth, we've got to talk about these characters. Once again, Caesar is the main character, continuing the growth and arc that he started in Rise. He was the leader of an uprising in that film, but he's the experienced leader of a community in this one. There are hundreds of apes that depend on him and look to him for guidance and protection, and so when a potential threat rears up, he has a difficult decision to make. This is a character who, at his core, is a pacifist. He has strong morals, as well as a code of ethics that he follows, and trusts that other apes will follow too. He's mistrustful of humans, but unlike most of the apes in this community, has seen and experienced the good side of people, which is a major conflicting driver of his journey here, both as a character and as a leader. Unlike the previous film, we do get pretty significant characterization for other apes as well. There's a lot of depth and emotion to the relationship between Caesar and his son, Blue Eyes, who has his own character journey and evolution over the course of this film. And then of course, we've got Koba. He's the closest thing we have to an actual villain in this film, but even that's a bit nuanced and conflicting. He certainly does some awful things in this movie, and it's basically impossible not to root for Caesar over him, but you can understand where he's initially coming from, having only experienced abuse from humans. His mistrust and hatred of humans is well founded, so his arc, and especially his evolving relationship with Caesar, is just as fascinating to watch. The story and characters aren't the only things maintained or improved upon in this sequel. We've obviously got to talk about the visual effects as well. The CGI in Rise was pretty remarkable, and with 3 years of technological advancements, it's even better this time around. There are still some occasional shots that look a bit off, but when you realize the majority of the characters in this film are computer generated, the almost photorealism is pretty amazing. Amazing, but not magic, because once again, motion capture technology and some fantastic physical performances deserve much of the credit. Andy Serkis continues to embody Caesar here, providing both some exciting physicality as well as quite a few moments of emotive stillness that convey just as much about the character. With the increased presence and characterization of other apes this time around, this film also features some additional impressive mocap work, most notably from Toby Kebbell, who plays Koba. In a film with just as many dramatic close-up character moments as there are big action set pieces, the visual effects had to cover a lot of ground, and do so impressively. Since its inception, the Planet of the Apes franchise has served as a conduit for allegory and deeper thematic concepts. These themes have varied a bit over the years, and some movies were able to incorporate them into the story a bit better than others, but timely social themes and messages have always been a part of Apes. Rise tapped into themes of animal testing and freedom, but was thematically subdued when compared to the majority of the franchise. Whether it was a concerted effort or just a product of the story direction, this reboot sequel is a much more thematically layered beast. It doesn't beat you over the head with its themes like some of the original series sequels do, but is just as effective, if not more so, at delivering its anti-war message. It explores the role of fear in conflict, how trust or mistrust in the wrong people, or apes, can have huge ramifications. It looks at strategy and responsibility, especially for a leader, and it shows how nothing's black and white. There's always a gray area to everything and everybody that makes it impossible to make blanket assumptions. Like the best of the Planet of the Apes series, Dawn delivers on exciting entertainment, but it's also a much more intelligent movie than you'd probably expect, both cerebrally as well as emotionally. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number 1 is definitely Caesar. If you couldn't already tell, this is certainly going to be a trend for this reboot trilogy, because Caesar is just such a well-written and well-performed character. He was already set up nicely in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but this sequel only further expands on his growth and character arc. He's matured, both physically and emotionally, and is forced to contend with some intense stuff here. He's a father now, and the leader of a large community, so he has to grapple with the added responsibilities that come along with those things. I mentioned it in the last review, but Caesar really cements himself here as the best ape character, and just the best character period in the Planet of the Apes franchise. The second pro has got to be the themes. After a bit of a comparatively subdued thematic showing in Rise of the Planet of the Apes, this reboot series steps up its game here to match the thematic heights of the original series. Anti-war themes are nothing new for this franchise, but they've never been tackled quite so gracefully. The story itself examines the gray areas of conflict, but the messaging is never muddled, nor is it blatantly thrown in the audience's face. This is a movie that offers up some nuanced and intelligent thematic content, but can be viewed and enjoyed as an entertaining popcorn blockbuster just as easily. Pro number 3 is the visual effects. I know this is yet another pro holdover repeat from Rise of the Planet of the Apes, but it's just so impressive. There are far more ape characters this time around, and even more VFX-intensive shots than its predecessor, and yet it's that much closer to looking photorealistic. It's not perfect, of course, and some of the ape crowd shots, for lack of a better phrase, reveal some uncanniness, but everything here is a marked improvement over the already great CGI of the previous film. The close-ups of eye and facial movement, the effects of wind and rain on the fur, it's all really impressive. The motion capture technology used saw some improvements in the 3 years between the films, which helped, but of course that would have meant nothing if it weren't for the committed and strong performances by the ape actors, most notably Andy Serkis as Caesar and Toby Kebbell as Koba. On the con side, my only issues are just minor nitpicks. Another trend emerging with this reboot series. I think the human characters, storylines, and casting all saw an improvement over Rise, and I liked Caesar's interaction with the core human group here, but things did drag a bit anytime the story focused on just human interaction, especially at the San Francisco colony. Thankfully, there weren't many moments like this, so it didn't have that big of an effect. Another minor gripe I have, but something that's always stood out in a weird way to me, is how underdeveloped Caesar's wife, Cornelia, is. Family is shown to be such an important thing to Caesar, and yet his wife is kind of just there. She's used as a tiny plot device, but she's really a nothing character, which is unfortunate because it feels like exactly the type of confidant relationship Caesar could have benefited from. Before I give you my rating recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Dawn of the Planet of the Apes or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Dawn of the Planet of the Apes 4 out of 5 paws. Continuing and expanding upon the story and character arc set up in its predecessor, not to mention the visual effects advancements, this film manages to be both an entertaining blockbuster and a resonant thematic deep thinker. I would recommend Dawn of the Planet of the Apes to those looking for an action thinker. Basically, a movie with entertaining action spectacle, but also strong themes and emotional character work. Maybe not something you'd expect to see from a movie about talking monkeys, but this is a far more intelligent and affecting film than its images of gun-toting apes on horseback would have you believe. If you liked Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I would recommend Avatar: The Way of Water. Although it focuses on aliens on another planet, this is another film that features an interspecies conflict and a leader and father doing everything he can to protect those he's responsible for. Like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, this sequel features some impressive visual effects and motion capture performances. Plus, there's some sign language thrown in there for good measure. If you'd like to see another dark take on an existing IP by Matt Reeves, then you'll want to check out The Batman. A superhero police procedural might sound a bit different than a post-apocalyptic sci-fi action film, but both movies focus on the gray areas of society, examining what fear can do to people and their own moral codes. And if you'd prefer to stick with the Apes franchise, you might want to check out Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Although it's the weakest of the original series, it was a clear story inspiration for Dawn, focusing on Caesar as he tries to prevent a war between humans and apes, while contending with disloyalty and betrayal from within his own community. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Dawn of the Planet of the Apes? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's your favorite movie about trying to prevent a war? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insider information on this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies, the way life should be.